Welcome to the Smart Talk series, the show for professionals who want strategies, tips, and real talk about all things PR, marketing, and social media. Your host is Melissa Vela Williamson, an award-winning, accredited, and nationally recognized PR pro and communication thought leader. And now your host, Melissa Vela Williamson.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Talk series. I'm Melissa Vela Williamson. This season, our focus is on Latinas and public relations. Today, I'm joined by two guests, Irasema Romero and Lorraine Pulido, Ph.D. Irasema Romero is a seasoned internal communication advisor and leadership coach with more than 15 years of experience supporting leaders through transformative organizational changes. She currently leads internal communications at Gong, an AI-powered revenue intelligence platform, and has a leadership coaching practice, Ollin Growth, focused on supporting early career leaders. Dr. Lorraine Pulido became the communications director for the San Antonio Independent School District in August 2024. She has 30 years of experience in the communications industry, previously serving as communications manager for VIA Metropolitan Transit and PR manager for the city of San Antonio. She was elected the first female and first Latina chairperson to lead the Brooks Development Authority Board of Directors and is a trustee for Alamo Colleges District in San Antonio, Texas. Welcome, Irasema and Lorraine.
Hi, Melissa. So happy to be here.
Thank you for having us, Melissa.
I'm so thrilled to have you both together and with me to have this conversation. You all are officially our last episode of this season. So season 9 has been all about Latinas and public relations, and we're excited to introduce you all to our listeners today. So let's learn about your backgrounds. How did you get into PR, and what's your work life like today, Irasema?
Hey, yeah, I come from a family of storytellers. I grew up with my abuelita Nelly, performing and sharing poetry during our family get-togethers. That was her thing every time, and I, I, I also enjoy poetry so much and sort of that spoken word performance. And so when I was about 15 years old, I was watching an ABC Family movie, one of those cheesy romantic movies. And the main character in the movie was a publicist in New York City. And the moment I watched that movie, I knew that was the career for me. It's like I didn't even question it. I just believed that I would have this fancy job working in the big city. And so my PR career actually started working at the college newspaper first. I got an internship at Flashman Hillard just before my senior year in college, and it just my story, my career has grown from there. Now my focus is on internal communications for the AI revenue platform that you mentioned, Gong. I'm based in Salt Lake City, and I just really enjoy and love what I do because it allows me to sort of bring together communications and my passion for communications, but also my love for helping people and helping them feel connected to their work. And that's just so important today, right? In the world that we live in, we spend so much time in at work in our offices, and so love to be part of helping people feel connected to their work.
I love it. And, it's important that you mention also that you're focusing in on internal communications now, too. I mean, that is certainly an area of communication that PR people do great at, right? Because if you're thinking people first and taking care of your publics, taking care of your employees is quite natural, too. Lorraine, tell us about your background. How did you get into PR? What are you up to today?
Well, the way that I got into PR was actually by accident. I was looking for a work study opportunity when I was in college at my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, and I saw that there was an opening in their Office of Public Relations. Before that, most of my work study jobs had been related to journalism and publications that were offered there at the school. Well, when I entered this Office of Public Relations, that's when it hit me that the news that I was watching on TV or that I was reading about was very rarely by accident, that it actually had originated from the efforts of PR professionals. It wasn't just something that was magically happened. There was effort behind getting that positive coverage. After that, I was intrigued by PR and I studied it a little bit, but I kind of got stuck with journalism. But when I came home, I was actually having a difficult time finding a job opportunity in journalism, and I saw an ad in the Express News. Back then, there used to be ads in the newspaper for jobs, and I saw this position for PR professional at University Health System. And as I read the description, I realized that I had a lot of that experience and skill set. And that was my very first professional job in public relations was at University Health System. And after that, I got hooked. And even though I still dabble a little bit in journalism here and there from teaching part-time at colleges, I've been doing public relations for about 30 years now, and I'm happy to be focused on education PR through the San Antonio Independent School District currently.
Yeah, and you actually teach aspiring pros as well. So you've got your hands in all part of educating others about the industry, but then also supporting those who are being educated, from K through 12. So that's really fantastic.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we're going to focus on your why because you are both new book authors in the inaugural Latinas in Public Relations anthology. What inspired you to share your story in our new book, Latinas in Public Relations Shaping Communications, Communities, and Culture?
Well, Melissa, I think like what inspired me the most to share my story was the potential to make a positive impact on the lives of current PR professionals, but most importantly, any future PR professionals. There's so many people out there, particularly, as you mentioned earlier, my students, for instance, that are still debating what area to enter in the communications industry. So if my story helps them to be able to make their decision for their future careers, then I think that it will have been worth it to have shared my lessons learned 100%.
That's fantastic. Yeah, helping people make a decision by them being able to connect some dots from the stories you share is really impactful. And Irasema, what was your why behind sharing your story?
My story started a little bit differently than maybe most of whoever goes into PR. I moved to the US when I was 10 years old. I didn't know much English. Maybe I think I remember my mom teaching me how to say, "Hi, my name is Irasema." And so I'm also the oldest in my family. And so that there's sort of this tug and weight of responsibility to prove myself. And so there were definitely moments of doubt of, am I supposed to be here? Yes, I love writing. Yes, I love storytelling, but do I belong in these spaces? And as I went throughout my career, I realized the power of owning my narrative and owning my story. And what's beautiful now with social media is that it's wonderful to see so many successful Latinas breaking new ground across different industries, but as they share their stories and own their voices. And so I wanted to be part of that movement. And this book was exactly the opportunity I was looking for to share my story and hopefully share a story that would resonate with many other women who may feel like outsiders or struggle with imposter syndrome. And so this opportunity was really about embracing uh, fully who I am and finding strength in that and hopefully helping others do the same.
Absolutely. And in your story in particular, Irasedma does a great job of capturing all of that. This wanting to belong is a core value around the world. And I think sometimes people forget that that's what people really need to start thriving at all, right? Feeling that they are welcome and invited into some spaces. And that was part of what really inspired me to put this anthology together is I wanted to bring women from different backgrounds, but Latinas that really illustrated the spectrum of variety in our culture, in our geography, in the types of communication we do. And that having that public relations viewpoint, no matter what specialty you're working today or tomorrow, can be of service and helpful. But the need for women to do more self promotion so that they can advance into leadership roles, that's a proven gap with research. And in the Latina culture in particular, I was seeing and living and experiencing, and then through research saw This was definitely a need in our industry. So I want to applaud you all for joining me on this very brave adventure. And I think that's the greatest lesson, right? Is that people see that, hey, our paths aren't perfect. They are often nonlinear. Those are shared connection points for sure. And things like perseverance, overcoming doubt, adaptability, those came up again and again. I think those are very universal skills that we can offer others. So I want to talk a little bit more about your particular stories, ladies, your what, right? So across the stories, there are those, connection points that we talked about. But tell me a little bit more about what's in your story.
So a big theme in my story is learning to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And so I mentioned earlier, I was the first in my family to go to college, the first in my family to work in a corporate environment. I remember my undergrad experience, for example, it was jarring to me. I went to a college where 6% of the student population was Latino out of 30,000 students. And I was coming from a high school in Dallas where a majority of my friends were first generation. So college for me was really the first time I had to tell my story as people asked me, where are you from?" And I had to share. I grew up in Dallas, but I'm originally from Mexico. And so I spent a lot of time trying and working hard to figure out how to manage those unspoken rules about these new environments as I moved between different cultural contexts. So going from Dallas to Utah for college to New York for grad school. And then when I was working at AT&T, I got an awesome opportunity to work in Mexico City. And it was there going back to my native country in a professional setting as a leader in a corporate environment. That's when I really learned to almost let go of that need to identify myself one way or another. I can be fully Mexican and fully American, and that was my strength. I learned to really appreciate and the value that I was bringing, given those experiences that I had, and what I could contribute to my team and to my family and to others around me. And so for me, that was a turning point. Living in Mexico for 3 years, working in a corporate environment in Mexico, where I could really just appreciate the value that I bring to the table. And so embracing that duality of being both Mexican and fully American, that was really what made a difference in my career, but also in my personal life.
Yeah, I so appreciate that you shared that. And you also were very candid about, I got a chance to read all the stories before anybody else did. But you're very candid about how tough this work can be. And I think that's really helpful too, Edma. I think the honesty that we offer in these stories help people feel like they do belong because they can relate to having a life that has some hardship. So thank you for your candor there. Lorraine, tell us more about what's in your story.
My story in the anthology is basically a synopsis of the story of my life, Melissa. And what I focused on in my particular chapter was on how my experiences in my entire life shaped me into the, I think, effective PR professional that I am today. From becoming a teen mom in high school to finding my way to an Ivy League university in Philadelphia, the University of Pennsylvania, to helping to start the first Latina sorority ever at the Ivy League, and now being a part of this very rewarding PR industry. As I look at the timeline of my life, I can pinpoint the many milestones where I acquired new skills and motivation, and ultimately kind of a sense of purpose. Of course, as you're going through those experiences, you don't always appreciate them the same way that you do in retrospect, right? Like, I remember thinking, why me? Why is this happening? Why am I being challenged? Why is this so hard? Do I deserve to be at this Ivy League university with a 1-year-old? Here I am, struggling. And with the help of so many different professionals, instructors, student leaders, I ultimately found my calling. I was part of the school's newspaper staff. I was part of the school's TV station staff. And like I said earlier, many of the work study jobs that I held were somehow related to the communications industry. But now, now here I am as a director of communications for San Antonio Independent School District. And I can't help but really thank the Lord for all of those struggles throughout my life and ensuring that those struggles help to benefit me in every job that I've worked in. So a lot of times here in San Antonio, the PR jobs that I've held have encompassed target publics that I represented at some point in my life. So beginning with University Health System, where I held my first PR job, well, guess what? I actually had my daughter when I was 17 in University Hospital, which is part of University Health System, right? So I remember when they interviewed me and they said, "Why should we choose you?" And I said, "Because I am your target public." And they said, "Please explain." I said, "Well, I had my daughter here when I was 17. I said, my mom and dad used university health services for all of their healthcare because you offer healthcare for the indigent." I said, "And my neighbors use university health system. So I understand your primary target public. And I think that could help a lot for me to be a part of your PR team." And sure enough, like that has ended up actually being something very helpful throughout every single job that I've held here in San Antonio, where the majority of our community is Hispanic and where we have a large number of people who prefer Spanish as their first language. So I'm really enthusiastic about being part of the PR world, especially because I help to increase awareness of causes and initiatives that are dear to my heart, like education and transportation and economic development.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you sharing things weren't easy for you, right? You weren't born, as they say, that saying that they have in the US of with a silver spoon in your mouth, from a lot of financial means and a lot of great connections. And you did everything paving that path. And I think that is is really wonderful to share because sometimes, and especially for girls, if they see representation they can relate to, then they can imagine that possibility for themselves. And so what I'm learning more and more and what I'm so excited to really, be y'all's publicist over this next year plus is that these moments of if she can do it, I can do it. Like that possibility, opening that up for people is incredible. So I am so excited about that. And you all talk about the different parts of specialties within communications and PR that you're focusing on now. But I also want to open that door for any aspiring pros or maybe those in practice who have only done one type of communication specialty. Maybe they focus on media relations or they just focused on maybe internal comms and they're ready for kind of a change or a pivot. And there's so many disciplines within our area. So what area do you find yourself drawn to or do you consider yourself a specialist in and why?
Melissa, it's interesting that you bring up this question today because during last night's lecture, I teach at Texas A&M San Antonio in the communications department, and we were talking about social media public relations. And I was explaining to the students how this is definitely an area where public relations is growing, where there's so much opportunity, and it could be very lucrative and intrinsically rewarding because the majority of my students have grown up with social media in their lives. So they've become pseudo experts in it just by practicing it, right? So they asked me, "Well, what has been your experience, Dr. Pulido, in social media?" So I shared with them that I actually was the one who introduced social media to the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center when I was their director of marketing and PR. I said, we really need to open up accounts in Facebook. And back then, we had Twitter and Instagram and even YouTube. And little did we know, right, that a decade and a half or so later, that social media is non-negotiable. You must have a social media presence in the public relations world in order to really make an impact for all of your target publics, no matter who they are. And so we had a very lively discussion about social media. And at the end of the conversation, Melissa, I asked them with a show of hands how many of them would now consider social media public relations. And about a third of the class raised their hand out of my 24 students. And they seem to be very enthusiastic. A few of them stayed after class to discuss it further. So I think social media PR is an area where I've become a specialist in that I didn't never could have anticipated, right, during
Yeah.
my internship in the late 80s in Penn. But now it's like, whoa, of course you got to have a social media presence. It's not even an option anymore. It's a requirement.
Yeah, and it is that public relations point of view that's the big difference, right? Because a lot of people will say, "Oh, we do social media." But what is your purpose behind it? Is it marketing? Is it advertising? Is it causing trouble? So, like, what is that purpose, right? And so if you're using it for community building and sharing resources and helping others, yes, you have a PR point of view on it. And, fight that good fight, Lorraine, because we need some good pros on PR. Irasema, what about your discipline interests? What are you drawn to, or do you feel like you're a specialist in?
I am definitely drawn to internal communications. It just when I moved to Mexico City for AT&T Mexico, we were integrating two different companies and asking them to now be one team when they were previously competitors. And so the power of internal communications and employee engagement to bring those two teams together as one AT&T. Somos AT&T was the campaign that we launched internally. That for me switched everything, and it really provided me a view of just the how powerful internal communications can be. And when we talked about social PR, this is internal PR as well in some ways. And I used to think that internal communications was sort of this step sibling of PR. It didn't seem as glamorous. It felt sort of like an afterthought when it really should not be. And you can have so much fun with internal communications, incorporating social ambassadors, driving campaigns, connecting with HR to improve recruitment efforts, right? But it's all about the stories of our employees and helping them feel connected to the mission of the company. And I've really learned that engaged employees could feel connected to a company's mission are and can be the best brand ambassadors. And so for me, I find a lot of fulfillment in this work because I can apply my love for storytelling and my love for people and people that I get to know, an audience that I really get to know as I work in the company and with the clients that I support.
Yeah, really important points. And I want to make sure we all remember that our number one target audience or target publics for you APRs out there should be our employees. They should be our brand ambassadors. They should be the most informed on what's happening with the organization so that they can authentically acknowledge, validate, confirm something that a consumer may hear. And there is that dissonance sometimes when the employees don't know what's going on and the consumer asks them a question or, inquires about it. I think all of us have been in that experience where we're at like a store, right? A grocery store, a retail store, and we say, "Hey, we heard you have this special. We heard you have this event happening." And when the cashier doesn't know what you're talking about, they feel disappointed and you feel disappointed. And that's not helping anybody in comms who help put that all together. So integrating more between external comms, internal comms, like we should just be communications for the organization. And we should all have that seat at the table so that everyone's informed and engaged as our top target. So very good at Itasedma, very good to highlight that. Well, I want to leave our listeners and everyone here in our community with some good advice from you two, because you are smarties and you are super helpful in sharing such insights. So, what advice would you share with someone who may be considering maybe going after a promotion or taking some type of scary step forward in their career?
Well, I think that it's important for any professional in an area, whether it's PR or any other area, that they feel emboldened by having the proper preparation. So that means making sure that they do the research before they take that so-called scary step, right? Do the research, talk to the experts, read about that particular area, maybe identify a mentor. I think one of the best things that have worked for me is to secure mentors and then maintain contact with them to help me to make sure that I am always on top of what the latest trends are, but also, what is just traditional PR that we must always take into consideration, right? No matter what is happening out there, because sometimes I think we do get distracted by trends. So I would say take the leap, but make sure that you do it with the proper preparation and research.
I love that. Irasema, advice from you on taking a scary step forward or going after something you're unsure about.
Love what Lauren said about setting the foundation, right? Doing the research, being prepared, knowing that you have shown up to do the job. But sometimes you also have to ask for it. And I've learned that that is the hardest step to take, to ask for what you want, knowing that you've prepared for it and that you're ready for that move. I look back at my career and I can think back on a promotion that I got. I was already doing the job. I was already in the position. I simply didn't have the title. And I had to ask for it. I had to say, this is what I need for me to stay any longer in this role. And in a matter of a week, things were decided. I was signing my contract, right? And so for me, it was eye opening how easy we can go month to month, week to week, year to year, without the promotions or the races that we need simply because we feel uncomfortable asking for them. And so do the work, set the foundation, make sure you have the research, but show up and come prepared to have a conversation, an honest conversation with your boss, with your leaders, and also ask for opportunities to build those skills that maybe you may need. Right? Sometimes the conversation will lead you to identify areas of opportunity, and most, if not all, of our leaders are engaged in helping us continue to grow. And sometimes you just have to be open to have those discussions with your team.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you mentioned you have to be prepared to be uncomfortable and ask for it. In the introduction of our book, that is absolutely what I'm teeing everything up for. And in my story as well is this idea of leadership isn't a crown that someone just sits on your head. We can't be waiting to be noticed or spotted, or as they say in the corporate world, sometimes tapped, right, for positions and opportunities, because sometimes that doesn't happen. And if you're the first in your family to go to university or work in this field or do something new, you may be the one that has to turn around and invite others one day. But for yourself, raising your own hand with preparation, right? And being strategically positioned for the opportunity, we have to have the ganas to do it. We have to have the motivation for ourselves and say, hey, let me just try. So, Lorraine, I love that you have a stage of students every semester. And that is my big advice for them too, is like prepare yourself, raise your hand and raise your hand. And so I love that, Irasema. Very good advice. All right. Well, I love talking with you all, but I know that you have very important work to get back to. So we'll kind of wrap with the question I love to ask all my guests. What does smart talk mean to you?
Smart Talk is exactly what we're doing right now, Melissa. Absolutely 100%. We are sharing lessons learned and insights, right? Because that's how we can uplift each other, is by making sure that anything that could possibly in any way benefit someone else, we should absolutely 100% share that golden piece of wisdom, right? Because I don't think that any of us here would have ever gotten to where we are in our lives without having had so many people throughout our careers share with us what they've learned. Most of the time, they've learned it the hard way, right? So it's important for us to pay it forward. And that is exactly what smart talk is. By talking with each other, communicating with each other, and sharing, we are definitely improving and enhancing lives and ideally increasing awareness of areas in our world that need enhancement. So as we move forward, I'm very appreciative for those people that have helped me in my life, including you, with your smart talk. And so I hope that other listeners out there will embrace what we've shared today.
I love that. And you're very welcome. You've been a mentor of mine for just as long as I've known you. So thank you, Lorraine. Irasema, what does Smart Talk mean to you?
I love what Lauren just said. Really, it's about community and building that community. And part of that for me, as I think about Smart Talk, it's listening, right? Sometimes you have to uh, listen and to understand your audience first. And uh, as important as it is to have the facts and the concrete data on the specific key messages that maybe we want to share with an audience, uh, connecting heart to heart and understanding how to tailor that message to the people and the audiences that you're reaching and meeting them where they are. I think that's part of Smart Talk, of being real, being authentic. People can see right through fluff, and so if we talk sort of in this more personable way, that's about creating connection, and that's what PR really is about: connecting with people. And so I'm super excited to continue to build on this Smart Talk today.
I love it. Thank you all. Y'all nailed it. You got it. Well, this has been fantastic. And I know there's many people who would love to learn more from you all and support your journey. So what's the best way for people to get in connection with you?
The best way for me would be LinkedIn. Please look me up, follow and connect. Would love to hear from you, whether you're interested in talking about internal communications, about leadership, or just exchanging stories. I would love to connect over LinkedIn.
And likewise for me, Melissa, LinkedIn, I'm under Lorraine Pulido, Ph.D.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, Irasema and Lorraine, for sharing your knowledge with us today. Thanks to our listeners for joining me for today's episode. We love covering communication topics that elevate our industry practice. If you'd like to go deeper, you can work with me as a coach, trainer, consultant, or hire my firm, MVW Communications, for strategic communication and public relations services. My industry books, Smart Talk, Public Relations Essentials All Pros Should Know, and Latinas in Public Relations, Shaping Communications, Communities, and Culture, are also available for purchase on Amazon. Grab your copy there, and please leave us a supportive review. Book reviews and podcast reviews help more aspiring or hardworking pros find our resources. As always, think smart and communicate smart. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Smart Talk series. If you learned something or enjoyed our conversation, share it on social media or send to a friend. To learn more about this and other communication topics, visit mvw360.com. That's mvw360.com.